Happy Tuesday and welcome to the Wolff Den, presented by Win Again Academy. I just actually left a Win Academy event, some great networking and informational, a lot of ex-pro athletes sharing their stories. Just a great networking group and event. WinAgainAcademy.com. I'm Matt Wolff, founder and CEO of Ticket Time Machine. Today we welcome Ben Wingrove of SchedulePop and e-tix.
Hello.
Welcome to the Wolff Den.
It's great to be here.
Yeah, so I just got my second shot a few hours ago. So if I pass out here, you'll just take over and we'll figure it out after that.
Our mutual friend Eric Kovitz just got his second shot, and he said he was up all night last night and had the fever, and so I hope he feels better. But I hope that doesn't happen to you, man.
Yeah, I think they say it's the second day, not the first day. So I basically have this, and then I have another show, Wolff Den, tomorrow, and I blocked out most of it, but I'm pretty sure I'll be able to handle an hour or a half hour, whatever it is, all for the greater good for events, which leads us to kind of what we're going to talk about today. But for people who don't know who you are, give a little introduction and a little bit about what you're doing now, and we'll dive into everything.
Oh, sure, yeah. So. I'm Ben Wingrove, and my background is I used to long ago I played in bands and stuff when I was in college and was interested in the music industry, and I went from that and had a little record label, and from that I had an artist management group, and then tried my hand in software sales for just a little bit, and then from there I got introduced to it was a startup at the time called e-tix, and went over there, and because I had some music industry background and a little bit of very small bit of software sales background, and they were looking for someone to they had a product and they were looking for someone to kind of get the sales part going, and so that was a really good fit, and like to think I helped build that business up, and I'm still a part of that today, and love that company. And then while I was doing that, myself and the guy Travis Janovich that founded e-tix, he and I had some various businesses together. We had a music venue in Richmond, Virginia for a while, and during that time, that venue, we were doing it to just be a customer of e-tix, so we could optically see what it would be like to be a client. And I wish we had done like a 2,000 square foot tiny little coffee house type venue, but this was like a 22,000 square foot 3-level runaway train rock club, and it was wild. So we learned a lot, and we had about 82 people, I think, on the payroll.
Wow.
And my wife was doing the staff scheduling, and that was a nightmare. And then that's where kind of the idea came from we started to kind of sketch out, like, how could we do this better? And that's where SchedulePop came from. And then started doing, working on that company as well. Like, just turned it from like the napkin into like a product, into a business.
Yeah, so let's talk about the process of that, because when you start thinking about building a business, and I had the same thing, you want to solve a problem, right? That's the core of it. What problem can I solve? That's what people want to do and can turn into a business. But there's a fine line between what's a problem for you on a smaller scale and what's a really huge scale problem. So for me, the ticket thing was certainly a problem for me. I like printed tickets. I want printed tickets. But realizing that enough people out there would want it to actually do a business. So how did that go from napkin to, was it just, I tried it, tried to see, talked to some people. How did that come from napkin to sort of where we are today? And then also tell people what it is, because I'm not sure they might not know.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so SchedulePop, it's staff scheduling software. So anyone that schedules, most of our clients, it's folks that schedule people that are working, shift work, hourly work. And we're heavily involved with, the nursing home industry and as well. And then randomly, we're also very heavily, it's very different from nursing home industry, I guess, is the country clubs and golf courses, heavily involved there. And then of course, we also do venues and restaurants and things like that. But the idea is that, and like to your point, like the problem I was trying to solve was I would always look at the payroll state. I would find out about overtime costs in my case by looking at our payroll statement, and I would stomp around and but it didn't matter. We'd already paid the money. Like, well, why do we have all this overtime? Why were we staffed this way? And what really I was looking for a tool that would and that's where the name came from. I just wanted the data that I needed to make business decisions pop up like in real time to allow me to make the right decision.
Is that a timesheet thing, or it works with a timesheet, or it has a time?
It can integrate with time clock systems and payroll systems, and we're actually going to build our own time clock as well, because we have a lot of clients that ask for that. So we are going to do that as well.
I got to introduce you to I got to tell you a quick story while it's on my mind, and then introduce you to my old boss at LexisNexis. So I was a salaried employee, but for some reason I had to fill out a timesheet, and my boss calls me up one day or calls me up. He's like, "Hey, did you work overtime last week?" And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I basically put in overtime every week for the last 3 years I've been working here. And he's like, well, you really need to get permission to do that. Right. And I was like, okay. I mean, I would put in 42, whatever it was, it'd come out to 41 and a half, 42. It was nothing significant, but as you said, it adds up. And I don't know how they had no idea, because they're obviously signing off on it. But it's, that's just a funny story that I'd be like, yeah, of course I'm into, you see my timesheet every week. It's been 3 years.
Yeah, 3 years. It was 3 years until he made that comment to you. That was part of the problem. I was very guilty of that too. It's like, where's all the money going? Oh, okay. This would have been nice to know as it was happening.
It's like the Office Space, right? With the tiny fractions of the money that over time, it adds up to a considerable chunk of change.
Yeah, absolutely. And then what we found, when we started, we were, my background was venues and to a certain degree restaurants. But I was always thinking about the budgeting, the labor costs. That was the big selling point, was the labor costs. And for a lot of the verticals that we work with, that is one of the big selling points. But as we got into particularly nursing homes, we started to realize, oh wait, I think it's a little different there. Their biggest issue, and it's been even made worse due to COVID, but it was already a big problem. I think anyone in that industry would I would be surprised if they didn't agree to this, that just the staff turnover, that job, it's a hard job working in those facilities. It's really hard. And it's very stressful and mentally exhausting, and the turnover can be enormous. So a lot of times we would go meet with people and they would just joke like, you have anything that can keep my staff from quitting? That's what the problem. And what we found was when we would look online and you look at consultant studies and things like that, like Anderson, McKinsey, companies like that, that if a company is using, automated staff scheduling software, the turnover generally will increase dramatically by 30 or 40%. And it's interesting because that was not what originally I wasn't thinking about that at all when we got started. But as it turns out, that was that's a big, it really is a big part of it. And the reason, when you think about when somebody is, say you're working at a nursing home or at a country club or wherever you are, and you you need the day off. You have a doctor's appointment, and there's no good way for you to find someone to cover that shift. What do? Do you go in? A lot of these places, there's Post-it notes and things, like buy a printed schedule still, believe it or not. You're more likely to quit that job if you can't get the time off when you need it. Your satisfaction is going down. And at the same time, in the nursing homes, we talk to facilities where they might be spending millions of dollars in what they call agency fees, because a nursing home's a little different than like our rock club in Richmond. Like if we're short a bartender, we might just be short a bartender that night, but you can't be short an RN when you're taking care of people. You have to have somebody, not only ethically but legally, in those facilities. And so if they can't find somebody, they start to put bounties on shifts. There's a lot of these facilities where they might have to pay. They'll offer someone $400 just to pick up a shift on overtime. So that shift might cost, if the person was getting $40 an hour, they're already going to get $80, and then they get a $400 bonus just for taking it. And sometimes they still can't find somebody, then they have to call an agency to fill it, and they jack the rate up. So and that was the big issue. And kind of the other half of that is if you can't, it's not only like the people who they can't find someone to cover for them, so they're unhappy, but you have people who actually would want to work and come in that work for you typically, but if they don't know that open shifts are available, like with SchedulePop, and I'm sure there's other products too, there's going to be, the staff has an app, the open shifts pop up, they get text, push notifications, stuff they can see, and they can just choose what shifts they want to pick up. But when people come to us, a lot of times they're just dealing with this with, if you put a Post-it note on the board of a nursing home telling people that they can pick up the shift, well, the people who are seeing that are in there working, like you're missing like 2/3 of your team that even see that in time. And so that we found that's actually one of the big issues that we saw.
And so it's nursing homes, it's country clubs. It really could be anywhere, I guess.
Anywhere, restaurants. We do restaurants. We do some venues.
Yeah, my friend used to work for a city pool down here in Florida, and he probably would love. So I'll tell him about it just so he can maybe pass it along. But he'd be someone who'd be good because he's not in it anymore. He's a teacher now, but he would probably be a good person to get some feedback because he was doing the schedule. It's a big deal trying to figure out scheduling because
it is. It's like it's not. It's nobody's favorite subject too. Like most people hate scheduling, and I didn't like scheduling either. I just like trying to figure out the puzzle of how to make it easier because it's usually not what anyone wants to do. But like in your friend's example, like a lot of the country clubs, they might have typically they'll have a pool, and they have somebody, kind of like your friend at the city pool. They'll have somebody who's doing the schedule for all the lifeguards and things that are happening at the pool. But then separate from that, there's like, say, a food and beverage department, basically probably 3 or 4 restaurants running in that thing. And it's a different person usually doing a different schedule. But there might be a lifeguard there that's, I'm trying to make rent and I want to pick up, I'm going to go work a wedding on Saturday. They want to get on that schedule too. So you need, like what our stuff does is it can look across these different zones and different schedules and keep people from being double scheduled so that you can have situations like that in more complex scheduling scenarios. I think that's what made the clubs kind of gravitate towards. It's pretty common for them to have 9 to 11 different zones with all separate schedules in one facility like that.
So it's a lot of his or her life would be easier with the scheduling. The higher ups like it because it's saving money. How difficult is it to get the conversation about, having them bring you on? Is it something they already have and you got to replace it? Is it something that you find most people don't have anything to help these? I mean, I find it weird to believe that they don't have anything helping in this capacity.
It's shocking. Yeah, our biggest competitors. Now there are competitors out there, and there's different ones in different verticals, of course. But and we just like kind of like at e-tix, we always went after multiple verticals. Do the same at SchedulePop. It's shocking how often we're competing against a spreadsheet. You know, and I'd say like with clubs, we just had a situation. We just did a partnership with a really great company called Golf Genius, and they do software for typically scheduling golf tournaments. Excuse me, and they have a new product called Golf Shop, and it's used to run your your golf shop or your pro shop and your cart barn. And they had polled their clients, asking them for what features they wanted in the golf shop product, and scheduling was really high on the list. And so we did this integration partnership, and there was a little button where their clients could, the club could click it if they were interested in using the scheduling and start the process of signing up with us. And we launched that about a month or so ago, and just under 200 clubs have clicked that they want to get started on the scheduling with it. So it's like you said, it's pretty surprising. It's shocking, and when we talk to them, they don't have a tool. They don't have a way to do this in a good way.
And are you using ROI to show why they need this? I mean, say, look, this is how much money you can save, which is going to, be much more than whatever it is for the cost of this. I assume that there's some real numbers that you could throw at them.
Yeah, we've been doing some studies on that, and as we're starting to have more folks in the space use it to come up with ROI numbers, and we're working on a little ROI calculator too, something really simple to put on our site. I think a friend of yours has a business related to that.
Did I send that? Did you talk to Michael at the ROI shop?
I did reach out to Michael. Yeah, so there could be. I think I did. Yeah, I think tools like that are really helpful.
Yeah, because I think you could show. Look, ROI is a lot of funny math sometimes, right? I mean, we used to have to do an ROI thing at LexisNexis. I'm like, look, you can write whatever number you want in there, and it could be true. But with ROI Shop and maybe the stuff that you are affiliated with, can show some real numbers to be like, hey, they can tell you, look, they can tell you how much more money they're paying, and this could be just an easy way to do it. And it's not just that; it's all this other stuff that comes with it. But that's a compelling argument to be like, hey, we should do this.
Absolutely, yeah. And we're working on different ones for different verticals too, because as we started thinking about it, and I started thinking about it more after you mentioned it, actually, Matt. And it's different. Like with a country club, ROI would be probably along the lines of like what we were just talking about. Saving money on budget, and what are the costs of turnover and hiring, and those things. In a nursing home, you also have the added. I get told over and over that the nursing home industry is the second most regulated industry in the country, second to nuclear. That's the only industry that's regulated more than nursing homes. So
there's so much crazy stuff going on in these places.
It's tough, yeah, and so they also have to deal with the fact that if they make a scheduling mistake, if they don't have the number of RNs that they're supposed to have, they can get fined, and they do get fined. They can, if it's a skilled nursing facility, you always see the star ratings. Like if you're thinking about if like a loved one's going to go in there and you're shooting for, say, a 3-star, the star ratings, it's not like a Yelp review or something where it might be like 2.96 stars or something. It's you either have 3 or you have 2, and the Medicare reimbursements to those facilities are based on the star rating. So if they drop, if they schedule the wrong number of, say, RNs, and then for a time period, then they get dinged and they go from a 3 to a 2. Their money just dropped just dramatically. You know, just 6-figure drop at a lot of facilities very quickly, and they can't correct it for 6 weeks.
Yeah, you could have bad reviews just based on what it is. It's a nursing home. People are not generally not happy at these places. Hospitals, you know, people have bad experiences when it's through no fault of anyone's, and it just is a bad experience. It's hard to rely on rating.
You could have the government. You have the reviews like you're talking about, and then there's just the government star rating, which is just a very matter of fact thing. And if there's some poor soul out there that's doing the schedule and something just doesn't work out right and it's off a little bit, then their star rating falls. It could cost them just a fortune.
Do you have any insight into whether or not some of the turnover is how much of it is policies and procedures and how much of it is this is just a crappy company and a terrible job?
You know, I hear a mixture. And the crazy thing too, there's so many staffing issues in that industry that a lot of people move, like they'll leave. Like it's very common, like when we're showing people the software, they want to make sure we can not just delete a user, but make them inactive. Because after they quit, they'll go work at another facility. And then once there's a high enough bounty maybe to come back, they'll come back. And then the place will hire them back just because they just have to have people. They're really, as an industry, struggling to have staff.
Yeah, I used to get my haircut at Supercuts, and the lady, you know, the one who ran the store, you know, we would always used to chat about stuff, and she'd answer the phone, and you know, someone would cancel and say I can't come in, and she's like, you know, why can't they be professional and courteous? I said, look, you're talking about, you know, 17, 18-year-olds making $7 an hour. Some of them are indifferent. They don't care, and they don't realize, and maybe it probably won't affect them anyway. As you get older, just the way you act with your employer is going to help. But that's some of the reason I think for turnover. But certainly
the staff communication, there's like, you know, we'll ask people, like, to your points, like, what is tying you, like, okay, you have a problem with staff turnover. What's tying you to your staff? How do they feel tied to the facility? Like, how are you communicating with them? Like in SchedulePop, there's just staff messaging tools too. So they can send like say they're going to change the door you need to come into to have your temperature taken when you're showing up to work right now. How do they get that information out? Or does someone walk in the wrong door and get yelled at and feels bad now for the rest of the day because they didn't know? Like, you can just do group text. You know, how do you deal with a call out in the middle of the day if you're an overworked manager and someone calls out? I remember that with my wife. You know, a bartender would call and say like, hey, I can't come in, you know, and she would just, you know, stare up at the ceiling and just be like, so now you're asking me to call 45 bartenders and find somebody, you know, like you want something where it's like, oh, they called out, you tap it, it records it, it automatically notifies everybody, that every bartender that could do that, they all choose what they want. You know, then if you want to put them on the schedule, you can see how many hours they already have. So you know if you're going to trigger overtime, because that's kind of the duress moment when you're like, I got to have somebody. And a lot of times the people raising their hands know they're going to go into overtime. So just having that information so you can just, as you're walking down the hall, just do it with a couple of taps. That's kind of the magic of it, more so I'd say than just like, it's a nice tool for also building and managing the schedule, but that wasn't as much the point, I guess, as the.
Well, you find all the things that you're looking for as you're going on, and someone asks you these questions, hey, I wish it did this. Maybe something you didn't think of, and that's it. Are you guys in version 1? I mean, you're relatively new. Is this version 1 of SchedulePop?
Oh, it's yeah, we've been coding we've been coding this thing for about 6 years now.
Okay.
It started out more like as a hobby project, and you know, I'm sure my wife would say, instead of using, you know, all our disposable income on, you know, exotic vacations, I was using it to pay software developers. So making this thing, you know, Field of Dreams or whatever you want to call it. And then eventually we had a few. Travis from e-tix actually helped us get our first client, which was a Denny's restaurant. We have a bunch of Denny's now that work with SchedulePop, and we learned a lot. And it just started to kind of to go from there. Then we went out and got a little bit of funding and started to try to operate it, you know, as a business. But so it's kind of cool. It's like it has this. We're kind of in that startup stage, but the product is much more mature than a startup product typically is, just because we've just probably foolishly been working on it so long before we really went to market.
What's
I don't recommend that. It's just what happened.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what you got to do, right?
Yeah.
Especially when you're talking about software and technology. Man, in the last year has grown 7 times what it would have normally, right?
Yeah, it's wild. And to your point about like not knowing what we, you know, like one thing that we built that we had no idea about, it never occurred to us. We just built a whole certification managing system too. And we have some country clubs and restaurants that use it, but we were building it for nursing homes, because what I learned was I would go in for a meeting somewhere at a facility, at like a skilled nursing facility, and you'd go sit down, and the person that runs a nursing home, they're typically called an administrator, and you sit down at their desk, and there would be like a 3-ring binder about this thick sitting there on the desk, and you know, and it was always just filled with certifications, because you're not, you know, at our rock club, we didn't have a lot of certification paperwork for, say, someone working security. You know, maybe we should have, but if you don't have a document that says you're a nurse and you're in there as a nurse for something, you know, that's a huge issue, huge violation. So they have to have certifications for all these people too. And then I was just like, God, how does anybody connect what's in this notebook to, you know, the person who's not even in this office, somewhere down the hall, like desperately trying to crank the schedule out on a spreadsheet or a piece of paper? How do they even know whose certifications have lapsed or when, you know, what's going on? And
yeah, I'm a big believer. I have calendars and stuff. I write stuff down a lot, and that's great for me. But when you have to integrate with people, it doesn't work. It's got to all be centralized so people can have easy access to it. And even if it's your stuff and you know exactly what it is, you know, what happens if I leave the company, or what happens if I, you know, get sick or whatever it is, or have to take a break, or I'm away on vacation. People are like trying to figure out it should be very easy.
And they're so busy, they might not even remember their own certification date. I probably wouldn't, you know, like it'll send them a text. Hey, your RN certificate, your CNA certificate is going to expire next week. You should go get it. Then they can go get it. They can take a photo of it with the app, uploads it. The manager can see it and, you know, approve it, and then they can be scheduled again. But if it'll prevent the scheduler from making a mistake that would trigger a serious fine if they put someone on the schedule that wasn't legally allowed to be on there because a certificate had lapsed. So that was a huge. I thought it was going to take 6 weeks, but I think it took like a year to do that. To build a whole module. It's like its own little product in there.
And there's a lot of stuff like, you know, the taxes you have to pay as a company and renewals and all that are designed to have you forget. I mean, it's good for business for you when they forget. I had one for taxes. I'm like, I didn't have any taxes to pay. Well, you didn't fill it out. I said, no, I filled it out. Your thing didn't work. And then they charged me this, and now I'm trying to pay it, and it's not working the payment thing. And I'm trying to. So there's a lot of processes that are built. You know, the credit card, right? I mean, they want you to not pay your bill or to forget it or do. That's how they make money.
To do a whole show on that.
Yeah, well, we could do a whole show on a lot of things. We're getting there. I love to do those type of shows too. So maybe the second time around we talk about something different. What's new today that wasn't part of SchedulePop, you know, a year ago, 2 years ago?
And not to go too far in the weeds, but a big thing that we worked on. Well, you know, I waltzed into the first skilled nursing facilities that we talked to, and I was just thinking like, oh yeah, we know how to schedule a restaurant, so let me show you that. It's going to be great. You're going to love it. And they started saying things like, you know, PPD and acuity and census, and I had no idea what anyone was talking about. I mean, I just was nodding and trying to write everything down. And as it turns out, like, these places are so regulated, when they're doing a schedule, they have to, and we built tools to accommodate all this. They have what they call PPD numbers. So they have to, you know, like if you say your grandmother went to one of these facilities and you were paying money for it to be a 4-star facility, that 4-star means that she's going to get a certain amount of hours of care per day, you know. And so in the census number, it was just the number of patients that they have in there, you know. And so so like, just, it really simply stated, like, say they're supposed to get 4 hours of patient care per day from an RN, and there's 100 people in the nursing facility, they need 400 hours, you know, of RN time a day to have that. So you have to schedule that. So, and I'm oversimplifying, there might be, I think there's 4 to 6 different job codes that all have different PPD numbers to hit different star rating targets. And you're asking somebody that's, you know, probably doesn't want to be doing the schedule anyway. They're probably there to do a different job. To nail that schedule, make sure everybody's certified, make sure you have everything covered, and hit those PPD numbers, or everything, or the wheels come off, and you give them a piece of paper. And there's no way there's just no good way to do it. And so, like, our tool is just designed to keep them on the rails, just over, under, like it's calculating the PPD, it's showing them, it's things turn red, lets them know if they're over, under, kind of, you know, just to kind of, you know, keep them on track. And that was a really big project. And it took a while just for us as a team to really make sure we understood the math and like what we were being told so we could develop it. But that's one that we just did that we're really, really excited about, and just starting to use it.
And you guys are, we've had conversations, you've connected with some good organizations that might end up being really good for the business. Obviously, you grow a business, you're looking to scale, and you're also looking to improve the product. What does that line look like? Is it happening at the same time? Do you have to improve before you can scale? What does that look like right now?
Yeah, it never works out like quite exactly how you want it to work. But like what I found is, you know, none of this holds true all the time. But, you know, like we have some, like we have a large group of facilities that we just started working with now. We're starting to onboard them. And yeah, usually with the large group, they have corporate executives. It's not, you know, if it's a single facility, or say like a single country club, you know, everybody is working in that facility. There's usually not like an executive layer above it if there's just one. But when you're dealing with like the large group we're dealing with, they have just under 125 facilities. There's executive layers, and there are people who can sit there and look at things. And it can be really helpful for companies like us, because they have the time to devote some resources to give really good feedback. But the trade-off is they'll need more development, because they'll want some things added into the system. But that can be very helpful. So that the trick is kind of balancing, you know, getting the stuff done for them and getting them onboarded and bringing them on so that revenue's coming in, so you can pay for all the great things that you're making.
Yeah. What's your competitive advantage? Why you instead of the others?
Well, I mean, what we found, and there's different competitors in different spaces, although like we haven't seen a lot of direct competition in the I think like in the country club space, it's such a smaller vertical and very specific. There's not as many, you know, there are a couple products that are bigger club management products that might have a scheduling piece, but there's not, we haven't seen anyone like us just going really, you know, showing up at the country club trade shows and things like we do and really going after it. But we've been, doing one reason in the country club space they choose us is we do have integrations with, we have a partnership with Club Essential, which is a club management software solution. They're used by I think about 1,300 clubs around the North America, and then the Golf Genius one I was speaking of earlier. So these integrations, I think, it make it very attractive. But the other thing too is we put a lot of time in emphasis on just usability and ease of use, so just the UI, and that's usually the what people say when they're signing up with us. It's like, oh wow, this is easy to use. It's pretty friendly. I'm comfortable. A lot of these tools we found, as we're talking to folks, they can be hard to use, particularly once you get it.
And terrible to look at, not visually pleasing, which you wouldn't think is such a big deal. But when you're talking about these things, I mean, I'll give you an example. I use Salesforce. I use the old classic one. They have this new fancy stuff.
Yeah.
I think it's terrible. I don't know what, sometimes you just make these changes that aren't necessary. And you're like, who asked for these changes? You see that with Facebook and Twitter and, Instagram and all this social media. It's like, who asked for this? Because it's not better than it was.
That can be a tricky thing. Yeah, we have to deal with that too. And there have been cases when we've rolled out a feature that we think, oh man, everybody's going to love this, and then as soon as we put it in there, everybody, we have to retract it or make sure everyone understands it. But if you move something that they're used to, you can say, oh, this would make much more sense here. But if all of your clients know that it's there, it's a bad day.
Yeah.
So it's tricky.
You talked to Frank. I connected with Frank. He's pretty involved in the schools with his visitor management. Is there an opportunity in schools? I mean, they have schedules too as well. It's a little bit different, but is the schools is anyone who has a scheduling and an opportunity, or are you just kind of going to stay in that tunnel vision?
Oh no, yeah, I think anyone with shift workers could be. I found as we go from vertical to vertical, there's usually, a few things that are kind of special or custom that are unique to them, and we try to focus in on those things as we go in. But we seem to be a really good fit for like I was saying, restaurants, venues. There are things in there that for venues that I was just thinking of because I had a venue. Like a lot of times when you're scheduling someone to work at a music venue, the people who work there, a lot of times they're into music. They want to know who's playing when they're working. So just being able to put the artist for that day that you're scheduling to, because a lot of times with the club, you're scheduling by the show.
Right.
The club's not even open if there's not a show at a lot of these places. So
yeah, one of the perks of working there is people say, look, I'm working, but I'm going to be able to watch, Broadway or a concert or watch a game. And so that's a big thing. The reason I ask that is, e-tix, we'll go back to e-tix for a little bit.
Sure.
e-tix was very big, right? It's a big company, but it's not as well known as the Ticketmasters and some of the other, Eventbrites of the world. So they operated in this segment that was great for them, and there was enough business to go around. Same thing I find with Ticket Time Machine. You don't even understand how many events there are that you've never even heard of. Here, you have, nursing homes and country clubs, but then there's all these other types of organizations that have stuff like that. So there's so much opportunity out there. Competition is great because you understand what's good, what doesn't work. You don't actually have to go head to head against each other and worry that I have to, replace this person, which is, I think, a good position to be in for you guys.
Yeah, e-tix, it was, I remember the early days of e-tix, it was, we're in a lot of different verticals, and in hindsight, I wish I could, it'd be great to say oh yeah, that was our strategy the whole time, and we were going to do all, we were going to go international early and do these things, but we just realized that, we were just trying to be scrappy and not go out of business and just try to earn, man, if you called and you're just like, hey, I'm having a barbecue in my backyard, I'm going to sell tickets, we'd rush over there with a scanner and, sign you up, and we started to do things like early on, like there was just a random opportunity to do some things in Germany. And next thing you knew, we were doing some huge, like the German Grand Prix and some really large events that we could, with Ticketmaster at the time, this is back in 2001, had everything so locked down here in the States, we never would have had that learning experience or had that opportunity, if we just focused on that. Like my first day of selling there, I remember I had a fold-out table, I had a phone and a laptop, and I told them, like, look, get me the Polestar directory, like the old printed directories they had. And I just had the Polestar directory. I just remember just like opened it up, Alabama, okay, and then just started just cold calling just through the directory, and then you just start again. And I remember just calling like my first arena, and just being like, hey, can I talk to you about the ticketing? And they, after the laughter stopped, they would just be like, why do you call me in 9 years when the Ticketmaster contract's up? And maybe we'll talk about it then, maybe we won't. And I was like, oh my God, we're going to starve. So we started just going after everything. And that's really helped. Like it also has helped the product, I think, in that, like, it's stuff that you don't plan on, but like I remember like one of my very first clients that was, speed dating, and then, we would do that. And then they might need something specific. We did the ticketing for the TV show BattleBots was an early client, like for the studio audience. And we had to build certain things they were recording multiple shows a day. And so they were turning the room over, and it was kind of like the groundwork for us doing timed entry. And now e-tix does all of the, the whole Smithsonian system, because they need timed entry, particularly with COVID and things like that. So, there was no plan like, hey, if we do this for BattleBots, 10 years from now, we'll know how to do it for, the life and, the Museum of Life and Science or something like that.
The funny thing about the contract is it's true. They could do a whole nother show about Ticketmaster, but, just contracts in general. If I could find out when your contract is up, that'd be great. Because I'll put it 3 years on my Salesforce down the line to contact them, and then you got to find out when, because it might be, it might have been 2 months late when you call. Oh, we already just re-signed, and all right, let's put it on for 3 more months. It's a crazy world, the ticketing world.
It's so competitive too. There's so many ticketing companies that it's funny, like, and everybody's calling on the same venues and things. It's a smaller world. I didn't realize how small a pool it really was until I got out and was working on some of the SchedulePop stuff. When you're going after restaurants and there's 980,000 of them in the US, it's different than everybody going after the same, 2,500, 3,000 venues.
But there are more events too. There's crazy amount of events. I mean, I can give you a list of thousands of events that you've never heard of that I never even heard of. It's crazy. Just think about Comic Cons.
Oh yeah,
Comic Con, Shark Con, and VidCon. I mean, it's unbelievable how many of those there are. And so yeah, there's enough out there, and you move on to the next one and get back to them. It's fine.
That was always the strategy at e-tix, was that like we were never good at like just promoting ourselves as like, hey, we're the coolest ticketing company in town, and everybody knows, what we tried to do, what I do think we were good at this, and and still are, is just try to take care of the client and do a good job and listen to what they need. And we might not be able to develop every single thing they need like overnight. We have to use the pennies that we have and keep constantly adding things. But if we just keep doing that, we'll get referrals, and we'll just keep building it.
Well, that's the referral.
Gradual build.
Copycat world, right? I mean, if you do well for people see that you're doing well for the nursing homes, they're going to want to say, hey, well, I heard about this. Well, tell me what it's all about. Or if you did a good job for the country club. So that's going to be a big thing. That's why going into these different markets is great, because you could have these use cases or case studies, whatever you want to call them, and be like, hey, I got, we did this for a fight, a celebrity fight. I've reached out to all of the celebrity fights, and here's a music festival, and here's a Comic-Con that we did, and here's an artist. So you have, an example of you working with this, say, look, this could work, and we move it out and expand. But there's so much opportunity out there. I have to, reconcile myself that I can't, but we're not for everyone, even though we are for everyone. Like, I can't chase them all the way I used to, because, then it's hard to do. But I love to talk until I, get an answer. It's hard. That's just the salesperson in me.
Yeah.
But let's change a little bit. We'll get into the more fun section here. We're going to get to a segment that I wanted to try and get into, called Two Truths and a Lie. But just a couple quick questions for you. I love the logo on the wall. Is that a sticker mule like I have, or like
it's kind of, it is. It's like and our designer for SchedulePop, he very painstakingly, when he put it up, he used a Sharpie, X-Acto knife. I'm sorry, not a Sharp, and just like cut it out exactly so that it really turned out.
Yeah, so it's a sticker though. It's not painted.
It's not a painting.
Yeah, I love this sticker mule. We got ours from Sticker Mule, and it could come off and go somewhere else. I'm thinking about getting a few more somewhere.
Yeah.
Stuff. I love it. I think it's great. Who do people tell you look like? I got two in mind that you're like a combination of.
That I look like? I don't know. People usually don't.
They don't
tell me that. Maybe it's so bad they don't want to.
No, I think you got like you have a mix between John Krasinski and Matthew Modine. That's what I'm surprised you never heard that before.
I'll take that.
I don't know. It might be with the hat. Who knows? Could be different. So I sent an email out to everyone saying we want to do two truths and a lie, and you actually prepared for it, which other people, I found out you can't kind of do it on the spot. That's too hard. So two truths and a lie. You're going to give us three statements. Two of them are true. One of them is false, and I'm going to try and figure out which one that is, and you can tell us the stories real quick.
Okay. I played semi-pro lacrosse. I used to feed tigers, kind of a la Tiger King. And my band opened up for David Lee Roth.
Those are three good stories. I think the last one is probably the lie.
With the David Lee Roth.
David Lee Roth.
Do I tell you? I don't know how the game works.
Yeah, you tell us. Tell us which one it is, and then tell us the stories.
No, I did open up for David Lee Roth.
Oh wow!
And and some other there. I like to think that it was. Well, I do think. I don't know if I like to think. It was probably the high point of our band's career and the low point of his career, intersecting. I don't know what you call that point.
I love David Lee Roth, and I went and saw him and Sammy Hagar, and I was never a Sammy Hagar fan until they played together, and I was so disappointed in David Lee Roth, and Sammy Lee Hagar killed it, and I realized it's because he got to sing all the good songs.
Yeah.
And that's what, but David Lee Roth is great. That must have been.
It was strange. We did like a couple of nights with him, so we were traveling along, and I just remember, like, we were so excited, people my age grow up on Van Halen, but it's, first of all, nobody wants to hear David Lee Roth say, like, please don't forget to tip your bartenders, like, it just doesn't sound right. You just remember him in the arenas. We were doing like, the rooms were like, there was only a couple of shows, but they were like 2,000, I can't remember the exact capacity, but I think it was like more than 2,000, but probably under 3,000.
Yeah.
And so for us, it was, the closest thing to rock star time that we ever got to experience. But I just remember, like, the second night we did it was there, we were playing our set, and I was up there playing, and a bunch of people like rushed towards, like, the kind of pushed forward, where I was, and I thought, oh man, this is great. They're really into it. And I looked behind, and then I looked behind me, and he was standing. He had come out, and so they were freaking out because it was him. And he was, I don't know if you remember, like, I don't remember like which video it was when he makes he'll make the faces, like, he was doing that.
I think that's Gigolo, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, and that's why. So that's why everybody was excited. Had apps, they would have preferred it if I just moved out of the way altogether, I think.
So I think the tiger thing is actually true. Now I think it's the lacrosse that's false. Which one is it?
The tiger thing is true. Semi-pro lacrosse is extremely false. I would have loved that, but I wasn't that good. I was trying to think of a good false, and my 5-year-old is interested in lacrosse now this week. And so like we've been trying to throw a little bit. So that made me think to just stick that in there. But
Yeah,
it's never very good.
The tiger thing is really cool. When you mentioned it, like Tiger King, that made me think, okay, he definitely did that. How did that come to be?
I was there's a you know, I don't want to say it's like that place on Tiger King, but it was like that place. Like there's a facility, conservatory in rural North Carolina here, outside of the Triangle, and they take care of tigers, but it's not dramatic. It's not crazy like that, but it you know, you could volunteer to work out there. And what happened was I was doing there was 3 weeks in between when my job started at e-tix and that first software job I was referring to had ended. And so during those 3 weeks, I volunteered out there. And here in North Carolina, there's a lot of like chicken production, chicken plants, like Purdue. And so they would donate gets kind of a little bit gross. They would donate the reject chickens to the tigers. Like if a chicken has a big tumor on it and they can't sell it, they throw them in these giant trash cans. And I just remember this was in the summer, and I would be this is a very sophisticated operation. They take these, it's about 100 degrees outside. There's a giant trash can of raw dead chickens with the heads cut off on the back of a pickup truck. And I'm standing back there with a surgical glove on, and they drive really slowly by the cages. And because the cages, it's not like a zoo. It's
right.
Like you see on Tiger King. There's just a chain link fence. Like if they really ram it, the big fear is they're going to go over it, but they're going to push it up and come under, and which has happened at a lot of these places. But anyway, and then I would take the chicken, and you would just like throw it kind of like what I would imagine how you would throw a grenade or like a bad hook shot, and you try to throw it over the 15-foot fence and not have all of the chicken debris fall on your head. And they would just jump. I just remember they would jump up and they would just grab, it looked like, if you're hanging a ball over a cat and they're playing, they're standing up and they get really worked up when you feed them. And when they would grab a chicken and they would come down and they would just bite through it. And it sounds like if you were just biting in ice, if someone was chewing ice, they just go through it. And I would never want to go in a cage. I don't know what these people are thinking to go in a cage with one of these animals.
I mean, Tiger King was so wild and fascinating. It's crazy. I can't even think of another story like that, that just everyone had to watch, because you're just like, what the heck is going on? And then you have the whole intrigue about, did Carol Baskin kill her husband, which is, wow. Forget about that part. The whole thing would just be crazy without it. And now it's just like, hey, did she kill her husband? And you're just like, okay, maybe she did. I think she probably did. But she's out there doing her thing. The stars.
The funny thing, like follow-ups on that is one, to my knowledge, nobody killed anyone's husband out at this place. And then two, it's really, they have tours too. And in fact, e-tix began like ticketing this conservatory years later, which was kind of cool, years after I was there. But they, it's these places, a lot of times are on a big piece of land. This is on like 50 or at least 50 acres, I believe. And it's weird, when there's not a tour going on, you're just walking around in these pastures and you can just hear these tigers roaring, and they're stalking you. When you're the smallest thing, you're the target. They don't like you to bring small kids, or like I was working with one person and they were goofing around a lot. The closest we came, I think, to getting into some trouble out there was I was working with a woman out there. She was volunteering too, and she insisted on trying to get a tiger to come up to the fence so she could pet it through the fence, and she fell back, which is a sign of weakness and distress. And this tiger just started to ram the fence, and you could see it. It's just a chain link fence, not sophisticated. And all I could think about is can I outrun this girl?
Yeah,
that's really that's what's going to come. I was telling her let's not do this, but there's no one around.
But there's
just no one out there. It's just you and some tigers 40 acres away from where they're.
That's the joke, but it's true. You just have to be faster than the next person there, and that's the truth. I know with the alligators, they say if you go crisscross, I think you're fine. I'm not willing to take that test. I'll take your word for it. Look, somebody lost their arm on that show and then still went. He got maimed. Siegfried and Roy. These are ferocious animals that can be trained, but at the end of the day, it's the same thing with pit bulls, and they're some of the sweetest animals. But you get an animal on the wrong day or in a bad mood, it's not good for you. So
the other Tiger King thing, yeah, it's great. Speaking of, there was the person that lost their arm on the show. I can't remember their name, but a friend of mine, he's a longtime client at e-tix. His name is Jeff Johnson, and he's put together a touring Tiger King show now. He called me last week and told me about it. And he has the person you were referring to there and several of the other stars of the show, and then they're going around and doing QAs and I think they're booking performing arts centers and casinos and things like that.
Oh, let's do a commemorative ticket for that. Let him know we can do a special, a cool ticket for that.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah,
there's so many angles. You had what he was doing and the fight and the gay lovers, and it was almost.
It's wild.
It's almost hard
season 2.
Yeah, and it's real. It's crazy. Are you? I always like to ask about a Mount Rushmore. Are you a bigger music fan or sports fan?
I'd say music.
Yeah, what's your?
I like sports too, though. But
what's your Mount Rushmore for music? Your 4 favorite artists / bands?
Oh my gosh! Well, I'd love to. It would probably be Bob Marley. Elvis would be on there for me. The Cure would be on there, and then the last one, one of my just favorite. I love the Cult. I think the Cult would probably be there. Those would probably be the 4 for me. I try to listen to a lot of new music too, and just hear some different things too, not just get stuck on what I listened to when I was 12.
If you could bring one back, who would it be?
Bob Marley.
It'd be Marley over Elvis.
I think so. Yeah, I think it would. I would have loved to have got to see him perform. I think he would have made a lot of great music, more than even he did.
So many great artists that died so young, and even when you're old, someone like Tom Petty played forever, and just it hurts to not be able to go see him. He puts some of the greatest shows I've ever seen. We'll get you out of here on the same question we ask everyone. You have 24 hours to spend with one person. They have to be living. You can't be related to them. Who's it going to be, and what are you guys going to do? It could be any celebrity, actor, singer, athlete, whatever. President. One person.
And that person would have to be interested in.
No, we're gonna make it happen for someone. But you're gonna get 24 hours to, maybe not 24 hours, but a day to spend with them. What are you gonna do with them?
Out of everybody, this is probably very cliche, but I really would be curious. Out of people that are living right now, I would be very interested just to spend a day with Elon Musk, just to see how, his thought process of having such, world and beyond changing ideas and making them come to life is fascinating to me. I've heard it can be challenging to work with. I have a cousin that worked at Tesla for years and was in some meetings with them and stuff. But I've heard he can be very demanding, but I'm sure you would have to be
that's how you
to pull these things off. But that's why I asked if he'd have to be engaged with me, because I could put up with 24 hours of Elon Musk, but Elon Musk could probably only put up with about 10 minutes of me. Yeah. So I didn't know if I'd get my money's worth.
I don't know. We'll get a dinner or something, or I don't know. We'll go on a podcast. But I'm going to make it happen for one of my guests, Elon Musk. I think he was already mentioned, but if it is,
I'm sure there's a line.
We'll have a little group thing where we'll hang out. Speaking of that type of crazy, the news of Bill and Melinda Gates. I mean, that's just kind of shocking to me at this point, and they're so intertwined, and they will continue because they're doing such great things for a lot of people. But even the
I should have said David Lee Roth. Maybe that would have been more realistic.
I was going to say, I was actually going to mention something when you said that you play with David Lee Roth. I'm like, well, I don't know if you're going to pick him because you already met him. But yeah, it's interesting. It doesn't matter how much money you have and all this accolades. There's still things that just might not be great. So, appreciate what you have. That's my lesson.
That's right.
In that whole thing. But really appreciate you coming along. Love to see and hear the success of SchedulePop. SchedulePop.com. You can find Ben on LinkedIn, and you can find SchedulePop all over LinkedIn, YouTube. I think I saw it on iTunes, little video. So everywhere. They can email you. How's the best way they can get in touch? And who do you want contacting you, or what kind of help could you use? Anybody that wants to talk. My email address is just ben@schedulepop.com. Happy to. SchedulePop.com. All right. Well, what were you saying? I'll be happy to hear from anyone. Yeah. No, I think so. It's I know I've connected with a few, and hopefully we'll keep connecting each other with people and just keep growing and making the world a better place, and making corporations save money, make them better processes, whatever. That's what we're here for. So great to see you. Great to talk to you. We'll get you on again, and we'll talk about all this other crazy stuff that's going on here, ticketing and all that good stuff. But have a great week, and tune in tomorrow for another episode of the Wolff Den, and have a great day, everyone. We'll talk soon. Thanks, Matt.